In a world that never stops moving, sleep is often the first thing we sacrifice, and the last thing we understand. But what if everything you thought about rest was just the tip of a far deeper mystery? In this immersive journey, we dive into the science, the beauty, and the urgency of sleep, why we need it, what happens when we lose it, and how reclaiming it might just save your health, your mind, and your life. So dim the lights, silence the noise, and give your full attention to the most vital hours you're not awake for. If you enjoy this kind of thoughtful deep dive, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. It helps us bring more meaningful content your way. Chapter 1: The Universal Mystery of Sleep. Sleep is something that binds all of humanity together, something that crosses borders, cultures, languages, and ages, something so routine and seemingly passive that we rarely stop to consider just how profound it truly is. For every night, whether we are in the tallest skyscraper or the quietest countryside, whether we are children full of dreams or elders resting from long journeys, we close our eyes and drift away into a state so foreign to waking life that it might as well be another world entirely, and yet it is one we all know well, even if we do not understand it. This nightly descent into unconsciousness is one of life's oldest and most consistent rhythms, and for most of human history, it was cloaked in mystery, mythology, and awe, for in the ancient world, sleep was never considered a biological function. It was spiritual, symbolic, sometimes divine, and often feared, with the Greeks envisioning Hypnos, the god of sleep, as a winged figure who gently enveloped mortals in his embrace, while his twin brother Thanatos, the god of death, lingered close behind, creating an eerie but poetic association between sleep and mortality that has echoed through time and cultures alike, reminding us that to sleep is in some sense to let go of the physical world and surrender ourselves to something far greater and less understood. In ancient Egypt, sleep was believed to be a sacred journey where the soul could leave the body and travel to the realms of gods and spirits, gathering wisdom or receiving omens, and in Mesopotamian tablets, dreams were recorded and interpreted as divine messages to be heeded or feared, while among Native American tribes and Aboriginal Australians, dreaming was a space where ancestral spirits communicated with the living, offering guidance and warnings, and even in early Judeo-Christian texts, sleep was often portrayed as a time when divine visions appeared or where prophets received revelation, showing that for millennia, sleep was far more than rest. It was a powerful encounter with the sacred, the subconscious, or the unknown. Even as civilizations grew more rational and scientific, sleep remained largely unexplained, with ancient physicians offering various theories ranging from the idea that digestion produced vapors which rose to the brain and induced sleep, to the notion that the body simply became too exhausted to remain alert and therefore had to shut down for repair. But none of these speculations could explain why sleep remained so essential, why it occupied such a large portion of our lives, or why all animals, from mammals to birds to even certain insects, shared the need for it, and so for centuries, despite our great libraries, observations, and discoveries, sleep continued to exist in a kind of scientific twilight. It wasn't until the dawn of the 20th century that science began to probe the sleeping brain in earnest, and it was the development of the EEG, the electroencephalogram, that marked a turning point, for when scientists first attached these machines to sleeping individuals, they expected to find stillness and inactivity, but instead, they observed a complex dance of electrical signals, different rhythms emerging at different stages of the night, pulses of high and low frequency activity that revealed sleep was anything but a passive state. And this breakthrough shattered the old belief that sleep was simply the absence of wakefulness, showing instead that it was its own rich, structured process, with phases as intricate and necessary as anything we do while awake. As researchers delved deeper, they discovered that sleep was composed of distinct stages, alternating between light sleep, deep slow-wave sleep, and periods of rapid eye movement known as REM, during which the brain becomes highly active, dreams unfold vividly, and the body's muscles are temporarily paralyzed, and over the course of a night, these stages repeat in cycles of approximately 90 minutes, forming what scientists now call the architecture of sleep. A structured pattern that seems to be biologically programmed into every human being, regardless of age, culture, or environment, and which plays an indispensable role in our physical and mental health. But even with all this knowledge, one question remains deceptively difficult to answer. Why do we sleep at all, and what purpose does it serve that could not be fulfilled while we're awake? Because from an evolutionary standpoint, sleep is risky and inefficient. It makes us vulnerable to predators, removes us from reproduction and social bonding, interrupts hunting, gathering, and problem solving, and yet every species that has ever been studied sleeps in some form, even if briefly, even in harsh environments, and this universal trait suggests that sleep serves functions so vital, so irreplaceable, that life itself cannot do without it, and in fact, when sleep is denied, the mind begins to falter, the immune system weakens, decision-making collapses, and eventually, the body itself breaks down. So we find ourselves at the threshold of a great mystery, one that lies at the intersection of biology, consciousness, and experience. Because sleep is not merely the body's retreat into stillness, it is a profound reordering of the mind, a descent into a landscape where time warps and emotions swell, where memory is rewritten and stress is soothed, where the brain somehow reorganizes itself, preparing us to live fully again when the sun returns, and to sleep, therefore, is not to waste time or to escape life, but rather to embrace one of its most essential rhythms, one that cradles every living thing in its quiet, unseen embrace. Chapter 2: What is sleep, really? To understand the science of sleep, we must first grapple with what sleep actually is. Not just as a feeling or behavior, but as a biological state with structure, rhythm, and profound purpose, because although we often describe sleep casually as rest or shutting down, this language does not do justice to what's truly happening inside the body and brain when we drift off into unconsciousness, for sleep is not the absence of wakefulness, nor is it a simple pause in brain activity. In fact, the brain is remarkably busy during sleep, engaged in a wide array of vital processes that are not only active but essential for survival and well-being. Sleep is defined by scientists as a reversible behavioral state of perceptual disengagement from an unresponsiveness to the environment, but even this technical definition only begins to scratch the surface, because beneath that quiet exterior lies an intricate symphony of neurochemical changes, hormonal shifts, and electrical rhythms, all carefully coordinated by the brain to bring about different stages and depths of sleep, each one with unique functions and patterns. And what makes sleep especially fascinating is that it is not one singular experience, but rather a series of stages through which the body and mind travel repeatedly each night, moving through phases of light sleep, deep sleep, and the surreal, dream-filled realm of REM sleep. These stages are not random or chaotic but are carefully structured into a repeating cycle known as the sleep cycle, with each complete cycle lasting around 90 minutes and containing multiple distinct stages, the first of which is a transition from wakefulness to light sleep, a phase known as stage 1 or N1 sleep, where the muscles relax, the heartbeat slows, and the brain's activity begins to shift from fast, high-frequency beta waves to slower alpha and theta waves, signaling that the mind is releasing its grip on conscious awareness, and during this stage, we may experience hypnic jerks, sudden muscle contractions that sometimes feel like falling, or brief dreamlike flashes that occur as the brain dips into unconsciousness. Following this is stage 2, a deeper form of light sleep characterized by specific patterns of brain activity called sleep spindles and K-complexes, which are believed to play important roles in sensory processing, memory consolidation, and maintaining sleep in the face of external disturbances, and in this stage, body temperature drops, heart rate slows further, and metabolic activity decreases, marking a more stable and restful form of sleep that sets the stage for deeper restorative phases to come. And although we spend much of the night in stage 2, it is not the most powerful form of sleep in terms of physical repair or memory enhancement. That distinction belongs to stage 3, also known as slow-wave sleep or deep non-REM sleep, where the brain begins to produce slow, high-amplitude delta waves, signaling that large regions of neurons are firing in synchrony, and it is in this stage that the body performs its most critical physical repair work, including releasing growth hormone, strengthening the immune system, rebuilding muscle and tissue, and clearing out cellular waste, including toxic proteins like beta amyloid that are associated with neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and although the mind during this phase is less likely to dream, it is still far from inactive. Deep sleep appears to be essential for memory consolidation, learning, and emotional regulation, serving as a kind of neural reset button that prepares the brain for the challenges of the next day. After this period of deep sleep, the brain transitions into a dramatically different state known as REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, named for the signature darting eye movements that occur beneath closed eyelids, and during REM, the brain becomes highly active again, almost mimicking the electrical patterns of wakefulness, while at the same time, the body's muscles become paralyzed to prevent us from physically acting out the vivid, often bizarre dreams that characterize this stage. And it is here, within REM sleep, that the mind becomes its most imaginative, its most emotionally fluid, its most surreal, as the prefrontal cortex responsible for logic and inhibition quiets down while the emotional and visual centers flare to life, creating dreams that seem to obey their own strange and beautiful logic. This entire sequence, from light sleep to deep sleep to REM, constitutes one full sleep cycle, and over the course of a typical night, the brain repeats this cycle multiple times, usually 4 to 6 times depending on how long a person sleeps, with the structure of the cycles changing as the night progresses. Early in the night, deep sleep dominates, while in the later cycles, REM sleep becomes longer and more frequent, which is why dreams are often remembered in the morning, and why both early and late stages of sleep are crucial to the body's overall recovery and mental processing. Sleep is also characterized by distinct physiological markers, such as lowered core body temperature, decreased heart rate, slowed respiration, and muscle relaxation. All regulated by a complex interplay between the central nervous system and various hormones like melatonin, which promote sleepiness, and cortisol, which rises before dawn to help prepare the body to wake up, and these changes are coordinated by the brain's internal clocks, which follow the body's circadian rhythm, helping us to cycle between periods of sleep and alertness in synchrony with the 24-hour day. It becomes clear, then, that sleep is not simply a passive state, not just the brain taking a break or the body lying still, but rather a carefully orchestrated biological process involving multiple systems working in harmony to restore, reorganize, and prepare the organism for survival. And though it may look like nothing is happening during sleep, in truth, there is a great deal of highly complex, highly necessary activity going on beneath the surface. Activity that supports nearly every aspect of life, from memory and mood to immunity and longevity. So what is sleep, really? It is not just a time to rest, nor merely an escape from fatigue. It is a structured, essential, and deeply intelligent process woven into the fabric of life itself, a process without which the brain and body would falter, our health would decline, our memories would fade, our emotions would destabilize, and our very sense of self would begin to unravel, and that is why sleep, though long overlooked or misunderstood, is now considered not only vital but sacred. A force as fundamental to life as breathing or eating, and one that science is only beginning to fully comprehend. Chapter 3: The Architecture of Sleep. Although sleep may appear to be a continuous and simple block of unconsciousness from the outside, it is in fact an intricate, layered process unfolding in repeated cycles that the brain carefully constructs throughout the night, and this process, known as the architecture of sleep, is a dynamic composition of stages, rhythms, and transitions that together perform a vast array of biological and neurological functions, making it far more than just being asleep or not awake, because within every night's rest are loops of internal journeys through depth and lightness, through silence and dream, through regeneration and reflection, all governed by invisible biological clocks and neurochemical messengers that guide the body and mind through phases with distinct purposes. A single sleep cycle, lasting on average around 90 minutes, is composed of multiple stages which can broadly be divided into two main categories: non-REM sleep, also referred to as NREM, and REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. And these stages do not occur randomly or arbitrarily but are arranged in a specific order that repeats several times throughout the night, usually 4 to 6 complete cycles for a healthy adult, with each stage playing a unique role in healing the body, organizing memories, balancing emotions, and resetting mental clarity for the day ahead. and it is this repeating pattern, this oscillating architecture, that makes sleep not just restorative but also efficient and profoundly adaptive. The first stage, known as Stage 1 NREM or simply N1, is the bridge between wakefulness and sleep, a transitional period that typically lasts just a few minutes, during which the brain's high-frequency beta waves begin to slow down into more rhythmic alpha and then theta waves, and as this happens, the muscles begin to relax, the heartbeat slows, and awareness of the external world begins to fade, though the sleeper can still be easily awakened, and it is during this phase that people may experience brief dreamlike sensations or sudden jerks known as hypnic twitches, which can feel as though they are falling or tripping, a sensation so vivid it often startles the person back to wakefulness before they finally slip into deeper stages. Stage 2, or N2, represents a more stable and deeper form of light sleep, usually lasting for around 20 minutes per cycle in the early part of the night and growing longer in later cycles, and during this phase, the body's systems continue to wind down. Body temperature drops, breathing slows, heart rate decreases, and the brain's electrical activity begins to exhibit special waveforms called sleep spindles and K-complexes, which researchers believe serve protective functions, helping to shield the brain from external disturbances while also contributing to memory consolidation, motor skill learning, and the integration of new information into the neural network, making this stage vital not only for maintaining unconsciousness but for enhancing learning and cognitive function as well. Following this, the sleeper enters Stage 3 NREM sleep, also called slow-wave sleep or deep sleep, which is the most physically restorative part of the entire cycle and is marked by the presence of slow, high-amplitude delta brain waves that move across the cortex in synchronized pulses, indicating that vast regions of neurons are firing together in a state of profound rest, and it is in this deep sleep that the body carries out some of its most critical functions. Releasing growth hormone for tissue repair and muscle regeneration, bolstering immune response, clearing out metabolic waste from the brain via the glymphatic system, and reinforcing the structural integrity of cells and organs, while the mind is subdued and unresponsive, often without any conscious thought or vivid dreaming, as though the body itself has become the priority and the thinking self has been set aside for repair. After slow-wave sleep comes the most curious and fascinating stage of all, REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, during which the brain lights up in patterns that are remarkably similar to wakefulness, even though the person remains completely unconscious and immobilized, and it is during this stage that dreams become vivid, emotional, surreal, and often symbolic, with storylines that can twist and transform in strange ways because the brain's logic centers, like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, go mostly offline while the amygdala and visual cortex become hyperactive, creating a dream world that can feel as real and meaningful as the waking world, and during this time, the muscles are effectively paralyzed to prevent us from acting out our dreams, a feature known as REM autonomia, which is regulated by the brainstem and is essential for keeping the body safe during the mentally intense experiences that occur in REM. What makes the architecture of sleep even more remarkable is how it shifts and adapts over the course of the night. Early sleep cycles are dominated by longer periods of deep slow-wave sleep and shorter bouts of REM, which is the body's way of prioritizing physical restoration first, but as the night progresses, deep sleep phases grow shorter while REM periods become longer and more frequent, culminating in extended dreaming sessions during the early morning hours, and this evolution throughout the night ensures that all the necessary tasks, cellular repair, immune strengthening, memory organization, emotional regulation, and creative problem-solving, are attended to in a carefully timed sequence that maximizes the efficiency of every hour spent in bed. The cycle is not just biological but architectural in nature, composed of waveforms, hormonal cascades, shifts in body temperature and blood pressure, transitions in consciousness and awareness, and synchronized neurochemical interactions involving neurotransmitters like serotonin, acetylcholine, and norepinephrine, all of which ebb and flow in harmony with the body's internal clock. And the balance between NREM and REM sleep is delicate. Disrupting one part of the cycle can affect the function of the others, which is why fragmented sleep, even if it adds up to 8 hours, is rarely as restorative or effective as continuous, undisturbed sleep that allows the full progression of all stages to unfold naturally and repeatedly. Understanding the architecture of sleep is essential not just for appreciating its beauty but for diagnosing and treating sleep disorders, because when something goes wrong in this architecture, when people skip stages, stay too long in light sleep, or fail to reach deep sleep or REM, it affects everything from how we feel the next day to how we age over time, and that's why technologies like sleep tracking devices, EEG-based sleep studies, and polysomnography have become critical tools in modern medicine, offering windows into the architecture of individual sleep patterns and helping researchers tailor interventions that restore and protect these natural rhythms. Ultimately, the architecture of sleep reveals a design far more elegant and intelligent than we might expect from something that once seemed so passive and mysterious, because sleep is not a void, not an absence of life, but a symphony of silent work being done behind closed eyes, a beautifully ordered flow through stages that heal, recalibrate, and renew us in ways we are only beginning to fully understand. And though we may not feel it happening in real time, every cycle completed brings us closer to health, clarity, creativity, and equilibrium, reminding us that sleep is not the opposite of life but its silent foundation. Chapter 4: The Body's Sleep-Wake Clock. At the heart of sleep lies rhythm, a natural pulse that ebbs and flows in perfect time with the turning of the earth, a silent biological conductor guiding the body and mind through cycles of light and dark, rest and alertness, silence and motion, and this internal rhythm, known as the circadian rhythm, is the body's master clock, a 24-hour internal timer deeply embedded in the brain that governs not only when we sleep and wake but also how alert we feel, when our organs perform at their best, how our hormones behave, and how temperature, blood pressure, and even mood shift throughout the day and night. This rhythm is not something we consciously control, nor is it easily ignored, for it is regulated by a tiny yet powerful structure in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, which is located within the hypothalamus, just above the point where the optic nerves cross, and its position is no accident because the SCN is directly connected to our eyes, allowing it to respond to light. The most important external signal, or Zeitgeber, that sets and resets the rhythm of our internal clock, and when light enters the eyes, especially the blue wavelengths found in natural sunlight, it signals the SCN to suppress the hormone melatonin, increasing alertness and instructing the body that it is time to be awake and active. Conversely, as evening approaches and the intensity of light diminishes, particularly the blue light that the SCN is most sensitive to, melatonin begins to be released by the pineal gland, creating a cascade of physiological changes. Body temperature starts to drop, heart rate slows, blood pressure decreases, and the mind begins to ease out of its alert state, all of which prepares the body for sleep, and this naturally occurring melatonin surge acts as a signal flare for the brain and body to enter rest mode, a process that typically begins in the hours just after sunset and peaks in the middle of the night before tapering off as dawn approaches. The circadian rhythm, then, is like an internal sun that rises and sets within us, anchored to the external light-dark cycle but flexible enough to adapt when necessary, which is why people can adjust to new time zones or shift their sleep schedules over time, but this rhythm prefers stability and regularity, and when it is disrupted, by irregular bedtimes, late-night screen exposure, long-distance travel, or night shift work, the consequences can be deeply felt, because the entire biological system becomes misaligned, leading not just to poor sleep but also to impaired cognitive function, hormonal imbalances, reduced immunity, weight gain, and increased risk of chronic disease. Interestingly, while the circadian rhythm is most strongly tied to light, it is also influenced by other factors, including temperature, food intake, physical activity, and social interaction, all of which can act as secondary time cues to reinforce or confuse the internal clock, and this means that maintaining a consistent daily routine, waking up at the same time, eating meals on schedule, limiting artificial light in the evening, and getting sunlight exposure during the day, can help keep the circadian rhythm in sync, promoting not only better sleep but also improved mood, stronger focus, and more stable energy levels throughout the day. What's more, the circadian rhythm isn't limited to the brain alone. Every cell in the body appears to have its own circadian clock, and together these clocks make up a network of oscillators that regulate organ function, metabolism, and even gene expression in rhythmic waves, but all of these peripheral clocks take their cue from the central pacemaker in the SCN, meaning that when the master clock is thrown off, so too are the rhythms of the heart, liver, kidneys, and other vital systems, which is why disruptions to circadian timing, such as staying up late and sleeping in on weekends, can have wide-reaching effects that go far beyond sleepiness or fatigue. One of the most important aspects of this rhythm is its influence on chronotype, the individual preference for being active during different times of day. Because while some people naturally wake up early and feel alert in the morning, others feel most energetic in the evening, and these tendencies are not just habits but are largely biological, rooted in genetics and influenced by age, with children and older adults tending toward earlier chronotypes, while teenagers and young adults typically skew later, and although society often rewards early risers, this mismatch between biological rhythm and social demands can lead to chronic social jet lag, a condition where the internal clock is constantly out of step with the external world. Teenagers, for example, experience a natural delay in their circadian rhythm due to developmental changes in the timing of melatonin release, causing them to fall asleep later and wake up later than children or adults, but early school start times often force them to wake up before their brains are ready, resulting in widespread sleep deprivation, reduced academic performance, increased mood issues, and even higher rates of accidents and illness, and this has led many researchers and pediatricians to advocate for later school start times to align better with adolescent biology and support healthier development. Even in adulthood, aligning daily schedules with one circadian rhythm has been shown to significantly enhance well-being, productivity, and mental clarity, and the modern workplace is slowly beginning to recognize the value of circadian-friendly policies, such as flexible start times, exposure to natural light in office environments, and strategic napping opportunities, all aimed at reducing circadian misalignment and promoting health and efficiency, because when we work with our biological rhythm rather than against it, we find ourselves not only sleeping better but living better. However, our modern world is full of disruptions to this delicate internal clock, from the glow of smartphones and LED lights that suppress melatonin well into the night, to 24-hour work cultures and caffeine consumption that delays sleep onset, to jet lag caused by rapid travel across time zones, which forces the body into an artificial rhythm that takes days to recover from. And as a result, many people live in a state of chronic circadian misalignment, where they are awake when their body wants to be asleep and asleep when their body wants to be alert, leading to cycles of fatigue, insomnia, mood swings, and long-term health issues that silently accumulate over years. In the end, the body's sleep-wake clock is not just a convenient timer or background system. It is the foundation upon which healthy sleep is built, the invisible engine that keeps us in sync with the planet and with ourselves, and when this clock runs smoothly, sleep feels effortless, dreams unfold easily, mornings are crisp and clear, and the mind moves through each day with stability and strength, but when the rhythm is lost, sleep becomes a struggle, the nights grow restless, and the days feel heavy and confused, reminding us that to sleep well is not just to rest but to align ourselves with one of the most ancient and essential patterns in all of nature. Chapter 5: Why We Sleep, the Vital Functions. If we were to ask the most fundamental question in sleep science, the question that has puzzled philosophers, healers, and scientists alike for thousands of years, it would simply be this: why do we sleep, and what purpose does it serve so critical that every living species on Earth, from the tiniest insect to the most intelligent mammal, must obey its pull, because from an evolutionary standpoint, sleep appears almost self-destructive. It makes an organism vulnerable, immobile, and unaware of its surroundings, which is the worst possible state in a world full of predators, environmental dangers, and competition for survival, and yet, despite this vulnerability, no species has ever successfully evolved a way to avoid sleep entirely, which tells us one thing very clearly: whatever sleep does, it must be vital, it must be irreplaceable, and it must be deeply woven into the fabric of life itself. In the past, many assumed sleep was simply for rest, a kind of passive recovery period where the body replenished energy and the brain powered down like a machine in low-power mode, but modern science has revealed that this view is far too simplistic, because sleep is not a period of inactivity. It is a state of highly organized, highly intelligent biological work, a time when the body and brain shift into specialized modes that allow for healing, maintenance, integration, and renewal on levels we're only beginning to understand, and each stage of sleep, whether it be light sleep, deep slow-wave sleep, or the surreal world of REM, contributes uniquely to a complex orchestration of processes that restore us physically, mentally, and emotionally. One of the most obvious and well-studied roles of sleep is physical restoration, particularly during the deeper stages of non-REM sleep when the body releases growth hormone, repairs tissue, builds muscle, strengthens bones, and regenerates cells, and it is during this time that the immune system becomes more active as well, producing cytokines that help fight infection and inflammation, which explains why we feel exhausted and need more sleep when we're ill. Because sleep is not a luxury when we're sick, it is medicine, giving the body the time and resources it needs to heal and defend itself, and even small reductions in sleep can reduce the immune response, making us more susceptible to illness and slowing our recovery when disease does strike. But sleep is not just for the body. It is also absolutely essential for the brain, particularly in how it handles learning and memory, because when we are awake, our brains take in an enormous amount of information. Everything we see, hear, feel, read, say, and do creates a flood of sensory and experiential data that must be sorted, filtered, stored, and, in some cases, discarded, and it is during sleep that this work happens most effectively, with non-REM sleep playing a key role in transferring information from short-term memory into long-term storage, and REM sleep helping to connect that information, link it with older knowledge, and form patterns or insights that might not be apparent in the moment. This is why people often find creative solutions to problems after a good night's sleep, or why studying right before bed can enhance retention, because sleep acts like a librarian, filing away what matters and sweeping away the clutter. Perhaps one of the most underestimated but profoundly important functions of sleep is its role in emotional regulation, because when we sleep, especially during REM, the brain replays emotionally charged experiences but in a neurochemical environment that is relatively free from the stress hormone norepinephrine, allowing us to revisit memories, sort through difficult emotions, and process pain without the sharp sting of anxiety or fear that we would feel if we were awake, and this mechanism helps us diffuse trauma, reduce emotional reactivity, and gain perspective, which is why poor sleep is so closely linked to increased irritability, mood swings, depression, and even more severe psychiatric conditions. Without the emotional reset that sleep provides, we carry each day's stress into the next, and it compounds until the mind becomes overwhelmed. Sleep also appears to play a crucial role in brain detoxification, a concept that was once overlooked but has become increasingly important in recent neuroscience, especially with the discovery of the glymphatic system, a waste clearance pathway in the brain that becomes most active during deep sleep, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to wash through the brain and flush away metabolic waste, including toxic proteins like beta-amyloid and tau, which are known to build up in neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. And this process is so dependent on sleep that even a single night of poor sleep can increase the concentration of these proteins in the brain, suggesting that chronic sleep deprivation could contribute directly to long-term cognitive decline. Beyond the biological, sleep also serves a function that is deeply psychological and existential, because when we sleep, we enter a realm where the conscious ego dissolves, where logic softens, where boundaries between self and world become fluid, and in that space, particularly during dreaming, we often confront our fears, rehearse our hopes, revisit moments from the past, or imagine futures that may never come to pass, and while this may not have a clearly defined evolutionary purpose, it suggests that sleep is also a form of internal simulation, where the mind explores alternative realities, tests possibilities, and practices responses to emotional and social challenges in a way that is deeply personal and uniquely human. Some researchers have proposed that dreaming may serve a threat simulation function, allowing us to rehearse dangerous situations and build emotional resilience, while others suggest that dreams help the brain make novel connections, blending elements of memory, emotion, and imagination to create insights that waking logic cannot reach. And though the true purpose of dreaming is still debated, its consistent presence across cultures, time periods, and even animal species suggests it plays a meaningful role in how we understand ourselves and adapt to the world. Ultimately, the reason we sleep cannot be reduced to one purpose alone, because sleep is not a single function but a multipurpose biological system, and trying to explain it with one theory is like trying to explain breathing only as a way to take in oxygen, ignoring the many roles of the respiratory system in speech, smell, temperature regulation, and more. Likewise, sleep is involved in energy conservation, neural pruning, emotional healing, muscle repair, creativity, immune defense, and even moral decision-making, and to sleep well is to let the body and mind return to their original programming, correcting the imbalances of the day and preparing us not just to survive but to live fully. So when we ask why we sleep, we are not just asking a question about rest. We are asking about how the human organism maintains itself, how it restores clarity, how it processes trauma, how it stores knowledge, how it prepares to love, work, think, feel, and heal, and in this light, sleep becomes not a passive break from life but one of its most active and intelligent processes, a gift we return to each night that allows us to meet the world again each morning with strength, awareness, and grace. Chapter 6: Dreams and the Theater of the Mind. If sleep is the stage on which the body and brain perform their most important restorative functions, then dreams are the surreal and symbolic performances that take place in the theater of the mind each night, often strange, sometimes terrifying, occasionally beautiful, and always mysterious. Dreams have fascinated humanity for as long as we have been able to close our eyes and imagine, and they remain one of the most enigmatic features of sleep. Rich in emotion, bursting with imagery, and capable of defying all laws of time, space, logic, and memory, yet somehow deeply rooted in our personal experiences, inner conflicts, forgotten memories, and subconscious desires. From ancient cultures that saw dreams as divine revelations or messages from the gods, to modern psychologists who interpret them as symbolic representations of the unconscious mind, dreams have always been treated with a mixture of reverence and curiosity, and for good reason, because unlike the conscious mind which is governed by reason, language, and order, the dreaming mind operates with different rules entirely. It communicates in metaphors, it rearranges reality, it bends chronology, and it creates immersive stories that are often emotionally powerful yet logically nonsensical, giving us access to a realm of thought and experience that is otherwise inaccessible in our waking life. Dreams primarily occur during REM sleep, when the brain becomes highly active while the body remains effectively paralyzed in a protective state known as REM atonia, and during this time, the brain's visual and emotional centers, such as the occipital cortex and amygdala, are firing intensely, while the prefrontal cortex, which governs rational thinking and inhibition, becomes much less active, leading to a mental environment in which ideas, memories, and emotions can mix freely without the restraints of logic, and this shift allows the mind to construct elaborate narratives, strange landscapes, impossible physics, and characters who may be familiar or entirely fictional, all within seconds, and although these experiences vanish when we wake, they leave behind fragments, some vivid, some haunting, some inspiring, that we carry into the day without fully understanding their origins. One of the most famous theories of dreaming comes from Sigmund Freud, who argued that dreams represent disguised wishes and unresolved tensions, cloaked in symbolic imagery that requires interpretation, and although many aspects of Freud's psychoanalytic model have been challenged or discarded by modern neuroscience, his idea that dreams reflect the deeper workings of the unconscious mind remains influential, and it paved the way for later thinkers such as Carl Jung, who believed dreams could reveal universal archetypes and guide personal transformation, and even today, many people use dreams as tools for insight, creativity, and emotional exploration, believing that they offer a mirror into the soul or a path toward inner healing. In more recent decades, neuroscience has explored dreams through the lens of biology and brain activity, and one prevailing model is the activation synthesis hypothesis, which suggests that dreams arise when the brainstem generates random neural signals during REM sleep and the cortex attempts to make sense of these signals by weaving them into a coherent narrative. In other words, dreams may not begin with meaning, but rather the brain imposes meaning afterward, creating a story from chaotic impulses to maintain a sense of continuity and self, much like a narrator stitching together fragments of a film reel into a movie that feels complete even if it is illogical or fragmented. Yet newer research suggests that dreams are not random at all. They are shaped by recent experiences, unresolved emotions, stressors, goals, fears, and even sensory input from the environment, and studies have shown that people who are deprived of REM sleep tend to experience more anxiety, irritability, and difficulty regulating emotions, suggesting that dreaming may serve a psychological function, helping the mind to reprocess emotional experiences, desensitize trauma, and rehearse future scenarios in a kind of virtual simulator, and this would explain why people often dream about stressful or emotionally charged situations, and why even nightmares, unpleasant though they may be, seem to serve a purpose in preparing us to face fears and adapt to emotional challenges. One of the most fascinating aspects of dreaming is lucid dreaming, a rare but remarkable phenomenon in which the dreamer becomes aware that they are dreaming while still inside the dream, and in some cases, can even control the events, characters, or environment of the dream world. And lucid dreaming typically occurs during REM sleep and is associated with heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, suggesting a partial return of reflective awareness in the midst of an otherwise unconscious state. And while some people experience lucid dreams spontaneously, others train themselves to achieve lucidity through techniques such as reality checks, dream journaling, or waking back to bed strategies, and lucid dreaming has been used not only for entertainment or creativity but also as a therapeutic tool to confront fears, overcome nightmares, or rehearse real-life challenges in a safe, internal environment. There are also recurring dreams, which tend to feature the same settings, themes, or anxieties night after night, and these often reflect unresolved internal conflicts or persistent life stressors, acting as a kind of emotional echo chamber in which the mind returns to unfinished business again and again. And while not all recurring dreams are negative, some are comforting or nostalgic. They often point to patterns that the conscious mind has failed to resolve, and exploring their symbolic content can sometimes unlock insight into what the psyche is trying to work through beneath the surface of waking awareness. Interestingly, not all animals appear to dream in the same way, but many do exhibit REM-like sleep, including cats, dogs, birds, and even reptiles, and observations of twitching paws, vocalizations, or eye movements during sleep suggest that animals may also engage in some form of internal simulation, though whether they possess narrative dreams or just fragments of experience is still a subject of scientific speculation, and this raises the profound question of whether dreaming is a uniquely human phenomenon tied to language and self-awareness or whether it is a broader evolutionary feature that helps all animals rehearse survival, manage stress, or consolidate memory in their own species-specific ways. What is clear is that dreams matter. Not only because of their emotional intensity but because of the measurable impact they have on learning, mental health, problem-solving, and creativity, and throughout history, dreams have been the birthplace of art, music, inventions, and spiritual revelation, from Paul McCartney composing melodies in his sleep to Einstein imagining relativity while dreaming of sledding down beams of light, from shamans using dream journeys to diagnose and heal to patients recovering from trauma by reinterpreting their nightmares, and this tells us that dreams are not trivial byproducts of brain activity but a rich form of internal expression that taps into levels of the mind we do not fully control or understand. In the end, dreams remain both known and unknowable, rooted in biology yet blossoming into art, emerging from the structure of sleep yet transcending time and reason, and they are reminders that beneath our waking logic lies a deeper current of thought, emotion, memory, and desire. One that does not speak in words but in images, one that does not ask questions but shows symbols, one that cannot be summoned by will but arrives every night unbidden, creating private stories that entertain, disturb, confuse, and enlighten us, and whether we remember them or not, our dreams are part of who we are, part of how we heal, and part of how we prepare to wake and meet the world anew. Chapter 7: The Architecture of Sleep. Sleep is not a single, uniform state of unconsciousness but rather a complex and highly organized process composed of distinct stages that cycle throughout the night in a rhythm known as sleep architecture, and understanding this structure is essential to grasping how sleep functions, how it restores the body and mind, and how disruptions in this architecture can lead to serious consequences for health and well-being. Each night, the brain moves through a series of predictable sleep stages that repeat every 90 to 120 minutes, forming 4 to 6 complete cycles depending on the duration and quality of rest. There are two main types of sleep, non-REM sleep and REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement. Non-REM sleep is further divided into 3 stages, known as N1, N2, and N3, each progressively deeper than the last. N1 is the lightest stage of sleep and typically occurs at the onset of rest, lasting only a few minutes. During this phase, muscle activity begins to slow, and one may experience the sensation of falling or involuntary muscle jerks. N2 follows, representing a slightly deeper sleep, where body temperature drops, heart rate slows, and the brain begins producing sleep spindles. Sudden bursts of oscillatory brain activity that are thought to play a role in memory consolidation and sensory processing. The third stage, N3, also known as deep sleep or slow-wave sleep, is the most restorative phase of non-REM sleep. In this stage, the body performs critical maintenance functions, including tissue repair, immune system strengthening, and the release of growth hormone. Brain activity during N3 slows dramatically, and waking someone from this state is difficult and often results in grogginess or confusion. It is during this time that the body repairs muscles, builds bone, and strengthens the immune system. This stage becomes shorter with age and is often diminished in people with chronic sleep disorders or those under significant stress. After passing through these non-REM stages, the brain transitions into REM sleep. The stage most associated with vivid dreaming, heightened brain activity, and rapid eye movements. Paradoxically, although the body is completely relaxed and paralyzed during REM sleep to prevent us from physically acting out dreams, the brain becomes highly active, resembling its waking state in terms of electrical patterns. REM sleep plays a vital role in emotional regulation, learning, and the consolidation of long-term memories. The first REM period of the night is usually short, lasting about 10 minutes, but each successive cycle contains a longer REM stage, with the final one potentially lasting up to an hour. The cyclical nature of sleep, alternating between non-REM and REM stages, ensures that the body receives a balanced dose of physical restoration and cognitive rejuvenation. The first half of the night is dominated by deep slow-wave sleep, while the second half sees more frequent and extended REM episodes. This pattern is why cutting sleep short, such as sleeping only 4 or 5 hours, may result in disproportionately missing REM sleep, even if some deep sleep is preserved, and this imbalance can impair memory, emotional processing, and creativity. Sleep architecture can be disrupted by many factors, including stress, irregular sleep schedules, alcohol, caffeine, medications, and medical conditions such as sleep apnea. These interruptions can fragment sleep cycles, reducing time spent in critical stages and leaving the individual feeling unrest despite spending hours in bed. Fragmented sleep is especially harmful because it prevents the brain from completing full cycles, leading to incomplete memory consolidation, hormonal dysregulation, and weakened immune defense. As people age, their sleep architecture naturally changes. Deep slow-wave sleep becomes less prevalent, REM periods may shorten, and nighttime awakenings become more frequent. While this is a normal part of aging, it can be exacerbated by lifestyle or health issues. Understanding these shifts allows individuals and clinicians to better support healthy sleep in later life through behavioral interventions, environment optimization, and mindful management of medical or psychological factors. In essence, the architecture of sleep is a finely tuned dance of neurological phases, each with its own purpose and timing. When all parts are allowed to flow naturally, sleep acts as a full-body recalibration, cleansing the mind of emotional and cognitive residue, reinforcing memory, repairing the body, and restoring vitality. Disrupt the dance, and every system suffers, from the brain's sharpness to the heart's rhythm to the immune system's defenses. And by appreciating the elegant complexity of these cycles, we gain not only insight into our nighttime world but also the key to unlocking a healthier waking life. Chapter 8: The Brain During Sleep. While the body may appear still during sleep, the brain is anything but inactive. It enters one of its most dynamic states, orchestrating a symphony of electrical rhythms, hormonal secretions, memory processes, and emotional regulation that together define the transformative power of rest. From the outside, sleep may look like absence or unconsciousness, but on the inside, the brain is immersed in cycles of activity that rival waking life in complexity and importance. To understand the brain during sleep is to understand the deep neurological maintenance that sustains attention, mood, memory, learning, and consciousness itself. During non-REM sleep, particularly in the deeper stages such as N3 or slow-wave sleep, brain activity shifts into high-amplitude, low-frequency waves known as delta waves. These slow oscillations are a sign that neurons are firing in synchrony, and this coordinated quieting of activity is not passive. It is a restorative phase where the brain clears out metabolic waste, repairs neural pathways, and resets its synaptic landscape. One of the most fascinating processes occurring during this stage is the activation of the glymphatic system, a recently discovered waste clearance pathway that becomes dramatically more active during sleep. It flushes out toxins like beta-amyloid, a protein linked to Alzheimer's disease, and this nightly detox appears to be essential for long-term cognitive health. As the sleep cycle progresses, the brain transitions into REM sleep, and here, its activity changes dramatically. EEG patterns during REM are fast and low voltage, closely resembling those of the waking brain. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and decision-making, dials down its activity, while emotional centers such as the amygdala and hippocampus become highly active. This redistribution of activity creates a landscape where emotion and memory interact more freely, enabling the brain to sort, integrate, and often recontextualize the emotional experiences of the day. This is also the stage where the most vivid and emotionally charged dreams take place, suggesting that dreaming serves a therapeutic role in resolving psychological tension. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory hub, plays a crucial role during both slow-wave and REM sleep. In early sleep cycles dominated by non-REM, the hippocampus replays patterns of neural activity associated with newly formed memories, essentially transferring them to the neocortex for long-term storage. This process is known as memory consolidation, and it is one of the reasons why sleep is essential for learning. Later in the night, during REM sleep, the brain revisits these same memories from a different angle, integrating them emotionally, creatively, and associatively, allowing for deeper understanding and flexible thinking. It is during this phase that creative problem-solving and insight can occur without conscious effort. Another important brain structure during sleep is the thalamus, which acts as a relay center for sensory information. During non-REM sleep, the thalamus reduces its activity, essentially gating incoming signals from the outside world and preventing them from reaching the cortex. This gating allows the brain to tune out external distractions and focus inwardly on maintenance, recovery, and integration. However, during REM sleep, the thalamus partially reactivates, particularly to support the generation of internal imagery and sensations experienced in dreams. The result is a virtual reality experience constructed entirely by the brain, unbound by physical input but shaped by memories, emotions, and the mind's own architecture. Sleep is also a time when the brain recalibrates its neurotransmitter systems, balancing the chemicals that regulate mood, motivation, arousal, and stress. Levels of serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and GABA fluctuate in coordination with sleep stages, and imbalances in these systems, whether due to poor sleep or underlying disorders, can dramatically affect how we feel and function during the day. For example, reduced REM sleep is associated with depression, and disrupted slow-wave sleep has been linked to anxiety and impaired emotional regulation. This biochemical renewal during sleep underscores why a well-rested brain is more resilient, adaptive, and emotionally stable. Additionally, sleep plays a critical role in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to experience. The formation and pruning of synaptic connections, which underpins all learning and adaptation, accelerates during sleep. Non-REM sleep strengthens important neural pathways, while REM sleep refines and adjusts them based on emotional salience and relevance. This dual process ensures that what is meaningful is preserved, what is redundant is erased, and what is confusing or conflicting is given new context. Without sleep, this delicate balance breaks down, and the brain becomes overloaded, inflexible, and less capable of learning or adapting to change. In truth, the brain during sleep is not simply recovering from the demands of the day, it is reshaping itself, detoxifying, rebalancing, integrating, and preparing for the day to come. It is easy to mistake sleep for unconsciousness, but the more we study the sleeping brain, the more we realize that some of its most important work happens during the hours we are not awake. It is in this quiet, hidden labor that creativity blooms, memories solidify, emotions are tamed, and the mind awakens to a clearer, more ordered world. Chapter 9: What happens when we don't sleep? The consequences of sleep deprivation are not gradual, subtle, or delayed, they are immediate, pervasive, and often dramatic, affecting nearly every system in the body and brain. From the very first missed night of sleep, the mind begins to falter, the body's equilibrium shifts, and the complex machinery of cognition, emotion, immunity, and metabolism starts to break down. While occasional sleep loss may be manageable in the short term, chronic deprivation can erode health, productivity, emotional stability, and even basic safety, and understanding exactly what happens when we don't sleep reveals how central this nightly process is to everything we do, think, and feel. One of the most noticeable effects of insufficient sleep is the impairment of cognitive performance, especially attention, memory, decision-making, and reaction time. Just a single night of poor sleep can lead to lapses in concentration and slower processing speeds, and this becomes particularly dangerous in situations that require vigilance, such as driving, operating machinery, or making high-stakes decisions. Studies have shown that being awake for more than 20 hours produces impairments equivalent to a blood alcohol level of 0.08%, the legal threshold for intoxication in many countries. Sleep-deprived individuals may feel subjectively alert, but objective testing consistently shows deficits in coordination, focus, and impulse control. Beyond simple cognitive slowing, lack of sleep also affects emotional regulation in profound ways. The amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm center, becomes hyperreactive in the absence of sufficient rest, while the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain that normally modulates those emotional impulses, becomes less active. The result is a greater tendency toward anxiety, irritability, mood swings, and emotional volatility. In adolescents and young adults, sleep deprivation is closely tied to risk-taking behavior, aggression, and depressive symptoms, and in adults, it increases the likelihood of relationship conflicts, workplace friction, and even clinical mood disorders when chronic. Sleep loss also weakens the immune system, making the body more susceptible to infections and slower to recover from illness. During deep sleep, the immune system releases cytokines, proteins that help combat inflammation and infection, and when sleep is reduced, the production of these protective agents drops significantly. Vaccines become less effective in sleep-deprived individuals, wound healing slows, and even the body's defenses against cancer are compromised. Studies have shown that people who consistently sleep less than 6 hours per night are significantly more likely to catch colds and suffer from chronic inflammation, which is linked to long-term diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and Alzheimer's. The metabolic consequences of sleep deprivation are just as troubling. Lack of sleep disrupts the balance of hormones that regulate hunger. Ghrelin, which stimulates appetite, increases, while leptin, which signals fullness, decreases. This shift leads to cravings for high-calorie, high-carbohydrate foods, often late at night when the body is less able to efficiently metabolize them. At the same time, insulin sensitivity declines, increasing the risk of weight gain, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. These changes can occur after just a few nights of restricted sleep, and over time, they contribute significantly to the global rise in metabolic disorders and obesity. Sleep deprivation also places a heavy burden on the cardiovascular system. During healthy sleep, blood pressure drops and the heart has a chance to rest and repair, but without this nightly reset, the risk of hypertension, atherosclerosis, heart attacks, and strokes increases significantly. Chronic short sleep duration is associated with elevated levels of stress hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine, which keep the body in a state of physiological arousal. This persistent strain not only affects the heart but also contributes to anxiety and fatigue, creating a cycle of stress and sleeplessness that is difficult to escape without intentional intervention. In the brain, the longer-term effects of sleep deprivation extend to the very structure of neurons and the functioning of neurotransmitters. Without adequate rest, the brain becomes less efficient at clearing waste products and more susceptible to neurodegenerative diseases. Memory formation suffers, and creative thinking becomes impaired, as the brain lacks the chance to consolidate knowledge and reconfigure associations. Chronic sleep loss has even been linked to reduced brain volume in certain areas and an increased risk of developing conditions like dementia. In essence, sleep is not a passive downtime but an active state of brain maintenance, and without it, mental decline accelerates. Even hallucinations and microsleeps, brief, involuntary episodes of unconsciousness lasting only a few seconds, can occur in extreme cases of sleep deprivation. These microsleeps are particularly dangerous because they can happen during active tasks such as driving or walking, with the person unaware that they have even drifted off. Prolonged wakefulness can also lead to paranoia, delusional thinking, and in rare cases, psychotic episodes resembling schizophrenia. These symptoms underscore how fragile the mind becomes without sleep and how quickly the boundary between reality and illusion begins to erode when rest is denied for too long. The psychological toll of sleep deprivation also manifests in increased sensitivity to pain, lowered frustration tolerance, and a diminished capacity for empathy and social connection. Without sufficient rest, the brain becomes less able to process subtle emotional cues, making people more likely to misinterpret others' intentions and more prone to social withdrawal or interpersonal conflict. Over time, this erodes not only individual well-being but also collective cohesion in families, workplaces, and communities. Sleep is not merely a personal health matter, it is a societal one, influencing everything from productivity to compassion to public safety. In the most severe cases, total sleep deprivation over many days can lead to a breakdown of all biological and mental systems. Experimental studies with animals have shown that continuous wakefulness eventually leads to immune collapse, organ failure, and death. In humans, conditions like fatal familial insomnia, a rare genetic disorder, illustrate that the inability to sleep is incompatible with life. Though most people will never face such extremes, the lesson is clear. The need for sleep is not optional, negotiable, or indulgent, it is essential to survival, health, and humanity itself. Chapter 10: Common Sleep Disorders and Their Causes. Sleep disorders are far more than occasional restlessness or difficulty falling asleep, they are complex medical conditions that interfere with the ability to fall asleep, stay asleep, or experience restorative rest, and their causes often lie at the intersection of biology, psychology, environment, and lifestyle. While many people casually dismiss poor sleep as an inconvenience, chronic or untreated sleep disorders can lead to serious consequences for physical and mental health, increasing the risk of heart disease, depression, accidents, and even early death. Understanding the most common types of sleep disorders and their root causes is the first step toward recognition, diagnosis, and recovery. Insomnia is the most prevalent sleep disorder and is characterized by difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking up too early without being able to return to sleep. It can be acute, lasting for a few days or weeks during periods of stress, or chronic, persisting for months or longer. The causes of insomnia are wide-ranging and may include anxiety, depression, chronic pain, medication side effects, poor sleep hygiene, or disruptions in circadian rhythm. Often, people with insomnia become anxious about not being able to sleep, which paradoxically makes sleep even harder to achieve. This creates a vicious cycle where the bed becomes associated not with rest but with frustration, and breaking that cycle often requires cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, also known as CBTI. Obstructive sleep apnea is another major sleep disorder, affecting millions of people worldwide, many of whom are unaware they have it. Apnea occurs when the muscles in the throat relax excessively during sleep, causing the airway to collapse and block airflow. These pauses in breathing, sometimes hundreds per night, lead to sudden awakenings, oxygen deprivation, and fragmented sleep. People with sleep apnea often snore loudly and may experience daytime fatigue, morning headaches, and difficulty concentrating. The disorder is more common in individuals who are overweight or have anatomical risk factors such as a thick neck, narrow airway, or enlarged tonsils. Left untreated, sleep apnea increases the risk of high blood pressure, stroke, heart disease, and diabetes. The gold standard treatment is continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP therapy, which keeps the airway open during sleep using a gentle stream of air. Restless leg syndrome, or RLS, is a neurological disorder that causes an irresistible urge to move the legs, often accompanied by unpleasant tingling, itching, or crawling sensations. These symptoms typically worsen in the evening and become most intense during periods of rest or inactivity, making it difficult to fall asleep. RLS is sometimes linked to iron deficiency, kidney disease, pregnancy, or neurological conditions like Parkinson's disease, and it can significantly impair quality of life when untreated. Movement often provides temporary relief, but the disruption to the sleep cycle can be severe. Treatment may involve iron supplements, dopamine agonists, or lifestyle changes like avoiding caffeine and exercising regularly. Narcolepsy is a rare but dramatic sleep disorder that involves excessive daytime sleepiness and sudden, uncontrollable sleep attacks, often occurring at inappropriate times such as during conversations, meals, or driving. It is caused by the brain's inability to regulate the sleep-wake cycle properly, often linked to a deficiency in the neuropeptide hypocretin, which helps maintain wakefulness. Some people with narcolepsy also experience cataplexy, a sudden loss of muscle tone triggered by strong emotions like laughter or anger. Additional symptoms may include sleep paralysis and hallucinations at sleep onset or awakening. Narcolepsy is a lifelong condition, but stimulant medications, scheduled naps, and lifestyle management can greatly improve functioning and safety. Parasomnias refer to a group of unusual behaviors or experiences that occur during sleep transitions, such as sleepwalking, night terrors, bedwetting, sleep talking, and REM sleep behavior disorder. These episodes can be harmless or potentially dangerous, depending on their frequency and severity. For example, sleepwalking might lead someone to leave their home or engage in risky behaviors without awareness, while REM sleep behavior disorder involves acting out vivid dreams due to the failure of normal muscle paralysis during REM sleep. This particular parasomnia is often associated with neurodegenerative conditions such as Parkinson's disease and may precede diagnosis by years. Treatment varies widely and may include safety precautions, medication, or addressing underlying neurological or psychological issues. Circadian rhythm sleep disorders occur when the body's internal clock is misaligned with the external environment. These include delayed sleep phase disorder, where individuals naturally fall asleep and wake much later than is considered socially or professionally acceptable, and shift work disorder, which affects people working overnight or rotating shifts. Jet lag is a temporary example of circadian misalignment, while non-24-hour sleep-wake disorder, common in blind individuals, is a chronic condition where the internal clock runs longer than 24 hours. These disorders can cause sleep loss, daytime fatigue, mood disturbances, and social or occupational impairments. Treatment may include bright light therapy, melatonin supplementation, and strict scheduling to help realign the body's clock. Bruxism or nighttime teeth grinding, though often overlooked, is another sleep-related condition that can lead to jaw pain, headaches, worn-down teeth, and poor sleep quality. It is often associated with stress, anxiety, or misalignment of the jaw. Many people are unaware they grind their teeth until a partner mentions it or a dentist observes the damage. Using mouth guards, reducing stress, and addressing anxiety or muscular imbalances are common methods for treating bruxism and preventing long-term damage. Each of these disorders disrupts sleep in different ways, yet they all lead to similar outcomes: reduced sleep quality, increased fatigue, emotional dysregulation, and impaired daytime functioning. Identifying the specific type of sleep disorder is crucial, as effective treatment depends on accurate diagnosis. This often requires a detailed sleep history, overnight monitoring through polysomnography, or at-home sleep studies. Treatment approaches may range from cognitive therapy to medication to mechanical devices, but they all aim at restoring the brain's ability to follow its natural sleep rhythms without interference. Ultimately, recognizing that poor sleep is not a personal failing or mere inconvenience but often a sign of an underlying medical issue is essential. Many people live for years with untreated sleep disorders, unaware of how profoundly their well-being is being undermined. Through awareness, diagnosis, and appropriate treatment, even long-standing sleep disorders can be managed or resolved, unlocking the body's natural capacity for rest, healing, and renewal. Chapter 11: How to Improve Sleep Naturally. Improving sleep does not always require medication or complex interventions. In many cases, powerful change begins with natural methods that realign the body and mind with their intrinsic rhythms. Our modern world, with its screens, stressors, noise, and non-stop schedules, often pulls us out of sync with the biological patterns that govern healthy sleep, but by returning to foundational habits and restoring environmental harmony, it is entirely possible to experience deeper, more restorative rest without relying on pharmaceutical solutions. Sleep is a deeply instinctual process, and when we remove the barriers that interfere with it, the body often remembers how to sleep well on its own. The foundation of natural sleep health begins with consistency, going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, including weekends. This regularity helps reinforce the body's circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that regulates the sleep-wake cycle. Even small shifts in bedtime can throw off this rhythm, delaying the release of melatonin and making it harder to fall asleep naturally. Setting a sleep window that provides 7 to 9 hours of rest and protecting it each night is one of the most impactful and overlooked practices for long-term sleep health. Over time, the brain begins to anticipate sleep and initiates the cascade of hormones and neural activity that lead into slumber more easily. Creating a sleep-friendly environment is another crucial aspect. Darkness plays a pivotal role in triggering melatonin release, so minimizing artificial light, especially blue light from phones, computers, and televisions, in the hour before bed can make a significant difference. Using blackout curtains, eye masks, and dim red lights can support this process, as can lowering the room temperature slightly, which mimics the body's natural cooling during sleep onset. Sound also matters. Using white noise machines, calming music, or earplugs can help mask disturbances and create a consistent auditory landscape that signals safety and rest. A quiet, cool, and dark room is the ideal setting for uninterrupted sleep. Nutrition and timing of meals also play a role in natural sleep regulation. Eating heavy meals, spicy foods, or excessive sugar close to bedtime can cause indigestion, restlessness, and interrupted sleep. Conversely, a light snack with protein and complex carbohydrates may promote sleep by stabilizing blood sugar levels and supporting neurotransmitter production. Foods rich in magnesium, calcium, and tryptophan, such as almonds, bananas, yogurt, or turkey, can support melatonin synthesis. Avoiding caffeine after the early afternoon and limiting alcohol, which may induce drowsiness but fragment sleep later in the night, is also key to maintaining high-quality rest. Daily exposure to natural light is one of the most underrated yet powerful tools for restoring the circadian rhythm. Spending at least 20 to 30 minutes in direct sunlight in the morning helps reset the internal clock and increases alertness during the day, which in turn promotes better sleep at night. If natural light exposure is limited, especially during winter months or in northern latitudes, light therapy boxes that mimic full-spectrum sunlight can be a helpful substitute. This practice is particularly beneficial for those with delayed sleep phase disorders, seasonal affective disorder, or anyone trying to realign a disrupted sleep cycle. Physical activity is another natural enhancer of sleep quality. Regular exercise has been shown to reduce sleep latency, the time it takes to fall asleep, increase time spent in deep sleep, and improve overall sleep efficiency. Aerobic activities like walking, swimming, or cycling are particularly effective, but even gentle practices like yoga and tai chi can have profound effects, especially when performed in the afternoon or early evening. Exercise also helps reduce anxiety and depression, both of which are major contributors to insomnia. However, it is important to avoid intense workouts too close to bedtime, as they can temporarily elevate cortisol levels and raise body temperature, making sleep onset more difficult. Practicing relaxation techniques before bed helps calm the mind and signal to the nervous system that it is time to transition from wakefulness into rest. Techniques such as deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery, and mindfulness meditation have all been shown to reduce stress hormones, lower heart rate, and ease the mental chatter that often prevents sleep. Journaling or gratitude writing can also help release lingering worries or emotional residue from the day, clearing the path for deeper rest. These rituals, when done consistently, create a psychological and physiological bridge to sleep, replacing restlessness with calm. A bedtime ritual, repeated nightly, can act as a cue for the body to start producing sleep-inducing hormones and slow down brainwave activity. This ritual might include dimming the lights, reading a physical book, stretching gently, or sipping herbal tea, especially chamomile, passionflower, or valerian root, all of which contain compounds that support relaxation. Over time, the brain learns to associate this pattern of events with sleep, much like a familiar lullaby primes a baby for rest. These behavioral anchors are especially important in modern life, where overstimulation and unpredictable schedules often disconnect us from natural rhythms. For those who find themselves waking in the middle of the night and struggling to fall back asleep, the key is not to fight it with frustration or force. Instead, leaving the bed and engaging in a quiet, non-stimulating activity, such as reading a boring book in dim light, can break the association between the bed and wakefulness. Avoid checking the time, which can increase anxiety and alertness. When drowsiness returns, returning to bed gently helps retrain the brain to link the bed only with sleep and calm. Over time, this technique reduces nighttime awakenings and helps rebuild sleep continuity. Finally, for many people, the most powerful changes come not from any single habit but from a holistic lifestyle shift that respects the body's need for balance, calm, and consistency. This means reducing chronic stress, addressing emotional or psychological distress, limiting screen time, setting healthy boundaries around work and social obligations, and honoring the need for rest as a vital component of health rather than a luxury. When sleep becomes a non-negotiable priority, many other areas of life begin to improve in parallel, mood lifts, energy stabilizes, focus sharpens, and the body begins to heal itself more effectively. Natural sleep improvement is not a quick fix, it is a return to rhythm, a reconnection with the body's innate wisdom, and a reminder that rest is not weakness but power. The ability to sleep well is already built into us, it only needs space to reawaken. Chapter 12. The role of dreams in healing and creativity. Dreams are often seen as strange, surreal, or even meaningless, but science is increasingly revealing that dreaming serves important psychological and biological functions, especially in the domains of emotional healing, memory consolidation, and creative insight. While the images and narratives of dreams may seem chaotic or bizarre, beneath the surface lies a complex neural process that helps the brain sort, process, and integrate the day's experiences. Far from being random, dreams reflect the mind's ongoing effort to make sense of the world, regulate emotion, and prepare for future challenges through symbolic rehearsal and emotional rebalancing. Most vivid dreaming occurs during REM sleep, a stage of heightened brain activity during which the body is paralyzed to prevent physical enactment of dream scenarios. During REM, the emotional centers of the brain, such as the amygdala and limbic system, are highly active, while the logical reasoning centers in the prefrontal cortex are relatively quiet. This unique neurochemical balance allows dreams to bypass rational constraints and operate in a more fluid, metaphorical space where feelings, memories, and thoughts can be restructured and expressed symbolically. This dream environment offers the brain a kind of emotional playground where painful or unresolved experiences can be revisited and diffused in a safe, internally generated context. One of the most critical functions of dreaming is emotional processing. Studies have shown that people who are deprived of REM sleep experience heightened anxiety, irritability, and emotional reactivity, while those who get adequate REM tend to feel more emotionally stable and resilient. Dreaming appears to help the brain metabolize difficult emotions, such as fear, sadness, grief, and shame, allowing these feelings to be recontextualized and integrated into the broader narrative of the self. This process often happens without our conscious awareness, but its effects are tangible. We wake feeling lighter, clearer, or more at peace, even if we don't recall the dreams themselves. Dreams also play a powerful role in memory consolidation and learning. During both REM and non-REM stages, the brain replays patterns of neural activity associated with recently acquired information, strengthening important connections and pruning irrelevant ones. Dreaming often reflects this process, blending fragments of recent experiences with older memories, imagination, and emotion. This integration helps transform raw data into meaningful knowledge and links new information to existing mental frameworks. For example, someone learning a new language or skill may find that dreaming about the material enhances their retention and understanding, even without consciously reviewing it while awake. In addition to emotional and cognitive maintenance, dreams can foster creativity and problem-solving in remarkable ways. History is filled with examples of dreams that led to breakthroughs in art, science, and invention, from Paul McCartney composing "Yesterday" in his sleep, to the chemist August Kekulé discovering the ring structure of benzene after dreaming of a snake biting its tail. This creative power arises from the brain's ability to relax conventional associations during REM sleep, allowing unexpected combinations and novel connections to emerge. Freed from logic and linear thinking, the dreaming mind explores mental territory that is often inaccessible during waking consciousness. The symbolic language of dreams, images, characters, settings, and actions, is another aspect that supports their role in self-awareness and insight. While dreams are not always literal, they often reflect emotional truths or internal conflicts in metaphorical form. A dream about being chased may reflect avoidance in waking life, while a dream of flying might symbolize a yearning for freedom or control. Interpreting dreams does not require mystical thinking. It requires emotional curiosity and a willingness to explore how these images resonate with one's personal life. In this way, dreams can act like mirrors, revealing parts of ourselves we may be reluctant or unable to see directly. Lucid dreaming, the state in which one becomes aware that they are dreaming and may even influence the dream, offers a fascinating extension of this psychological landscape. Practitioners of lucid dreaming often report using it to rehearse performances, confront fears, or explore creative ideas with enhanced clarity and control. While lucid dreaming is not necessary for healing, it illustrates how self-awareness and dream content can intersect in powerful ways, potentially offering tools for psychological growth and emotional resilience when approached with intention and care. There is also growing interest in the relationship between dreams and trauma recovery. Individuals with post-traumatic stress disorder often suffer from repetitive nightmares that replay distressing events in fragmented or heightened form. These dreams are believed to represent an ongoing attempt by the brain to process and resolve the trauma, even when it cannot fully succeed. Trauma-focused therapies like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, may work in part by mimicking the natural eye movement patterns of REM sleep, facilitating emotional reprocessing in a controlled therapeutic setting. This suggests that the mechanisms of dreaming are not only powerful but can be harnessed deliberately for healing. Finally, dreams remind us that sleep is not simply unconsciousness but a rich, multidimensional state where the mind continues to live, work, feel, and imagine. In the silence of the night, the mind is far from still. It is sculpting emotion, rehearsing life, solving puzzles, and sometimes whispering truths we were too busy to hear during the day. Whether remembered or forgotten, interpreted or ignored, our dreams are a testament to the brain's creativity, its need for emotional closure, and its capacity to transform chaos into coherence. Chapter 13: Sleep and Mental Health. Sleep and mental health are bound together in a tightly woven, bidirectional relationship, each influencing the other so profoundly that it is often impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. When sleep is disrupted, the mind suffers, becoming more vulnerable to stress, anxiety, depression, and emotional instability, and when mental health declines, sleep often becomes elusive, fragmented, or shallow. This cycle, once started, can reinforce itself day after day and night after night, making it harder for individuals to regain stability and resilience. Understanding how sleep and mental health interact is essential not only for treating psychological conditions but also for preventing them from taking root in the first place. One of the most immediate and visible effects of poor sleep is on emotional regulation. Even a single night of insufficient rest can heighten reactivity, reduce patience, and amplify negative emotions while dulling positive ones. The brain's amygdala, which governs fear and threat perception, becomes hyperactive, while the prefrontal cortex, the rational, executive part of the brain, loses some of its moderating control. This imbalance results in increased impulsivity, mood swings, irritability, and susceptibility to stress. Over time, this emotional volatility can evolve into chronic anxiety or depressive symptoms, especially in people already predisposed to these conditions. Depression and sleep disturbance have an especially close relationship. Insomnia is not just a symptom of depression, it is also a risk factor. People with chronic insomnia are significantly more likely to develop major depressive disorder, and conversely, those suffering from depression almost always report sleep disruptions, whether in the form of difficulty falling asleep, waking early, or sleeping excessively. REM sleep abnormalities, such as shortened latency and increased intensity, are frequently observed in individuals with depression. These altered REM patterns may impair emotional processing and memory integration, making it harder to recover from negative experiences or regulate mood over time. Effective treatment of insomnia, especially through cognitive behavioral therapy, often results in meaningful improvement in depressive symptoms, showing how foundational sleep is to emotional healing. Anxiety disorders also intersect with sleep in complex ways. People with generalized anxiety, social anxiety, panic disorder, or post-traumatic stress disorder often experience heightened levels of arousal at night, racing thoughts, muscle tension, and a state of physiological hypervigilance that makes it extremely difficult to fall asleep. This restlessness perpetuates the anxiety, creating a cycle of anticipation and dread around bedtime. Nightmares, sleep fragmentation, and early morning awakenings can further exacerbate anxiety symptoms, especially in PTSD, where sleep becomes a battleground for re-experiencing trauma. Techniques that calm the nervous system, such as mindfulness meditation, controlled breathing, and structured sleep routines, can help restore balance and reduce nighttime anxiety without the need for sedatives. Bipolar disorder is uniquely affected by sleep patterns, often in ways that are not immediately obvious. During manic episodes, individuals may sleep very little or not at all, without feeling tired, and this sleep deprivation can actually trigger or worsen manic states. Conversely, during depressive episodes, excessive sleep or hypersomnia is common. Disrupted circadian rhythms are a hallmark of bipolar disorder, and irregular sleep-wake schedules can destabilize mood even when medications are effective. For this reason, maintaining strict sleep regularity, going to bed and waking at the same time each day, is a cornerstone of long-term mood stability in bipolar patients. Some therapies, like interpersonal and social rhythm therapy, focus specifically on reinforcing these biological and social rhythms to prevent relapse. Schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders also involve significant sleep disturbances, which often emerge early, even before the first psychotic break. Individuals with schizophrenia commonly experience fragmented sleep, reduced deep slow-wave sleep, and chaotic circadian rhythms. These disruptions can exacerbate hallucinations, cognitive decline, and emotional flattening. Antipsychotic medications, while helpful for controlling delusions and paranoia, may sometimes worsen sleep quality or induce excessive sedation. Targeted interventions such as light therapy, structured sleep routines, and melatonin supplements have been explored to improve sleep architecture and overall functioning in people with psychotic disorders, with promising results. Sleep disturbances are also prevalent in attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, particularly in children and adolescents. Many individuals with ADHD struggle with delayed sleep onset, nighttime restlessness, and difficulty waking in the morning. These problems may stem from imbalances in dopamine and melatonin production, both of which are central to attention regulation and circadian timing. Lack of sleep in turn worsens attention span, emotional control, and executive functioning during the day, making it harder for children and adults with ADHD to manage their symptoms effectively. Behavioral strategies, consistent routines, and limited evening screen exposure can be particularly beneficial in breaking this cycle and enhancing daytime focus and mood. One often overlooked aspect of the sleep-mental health connection is its role in suicidality. Research has found that sleep problems, particularly chronic insomnia, nightmares, and fragmented sleep, are strong, independent risk factors for suicidal ideation and attempts. This holds true even when controlling for depression or other psychiatric diagnoses. It is thought that poor sleep reduces emotional resilience, impairs judgment, and increases hopelessness, all of which contribute to suicidal thinking. Addressing sleep problems in at-risk individuals is therefore not just about comfort or convenience, it is a matter of safety and survival. Fortunately, the same connection that allows poor sleep to damage mental health can also be harnessed in the other direction. Improving sleep can lead to significant, sometimes dramatic, improvements in psychological well-being. Therapies that target sleep, like CBTI, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and sleep hygiene education, can reduce symptoms of depression, anxiety, and PTSD without the side effects of medication. Many individuals report that once sleep is restored, they feel more emotionally balanced, mentally clear, and socially engaged, even if other aspects of life remain challenging. This underscores how foundational sleep truly is to mental resilience, self-regulation, and healing. In the end, sleep is not just a passive state of rest but an active, essential partner in maintaining mental health. It is the mind's time to process emotion, restore balance, and recalibrate thought. When honored and protected, sleep becomes one of the most powerful tools we have for safeguarding psychological well-being and restoring a sense of stability in a turbulent world. Chapter 14: Sleep Across the Lifespan. Sleep is not a static process, it evolves dramatically as we grow, mature, and age, adapting to the biological and psychological needs of each stage of life. From the fragile, irregular rhythms of infancy to the often fragmented rest of old age, sleep patterns shift in duration, structure, and purpose across the human lifespan. These changes are not random, they reflect the body's changing priorities in growth, development, repair, and adaptation. Understanding how sleep changes with age can help us recognize what is normal, what is not, and how to best support restful sleep at every stage of life. In infancy, sleep dominates the day, often lasting 14 to 17 hours, though irregularly spread across the 24-hour cycle. Newborns lack a fully developed circadian rhythm, which means they do not distinguish day from night, and their sleep is divided into multiple short episodes driven more by hunger and feeding than by light or darkness. Much of an infant's sleep is spent in REM, which is thought to support the explosive growth and synaptic development of the rapidly forming brain. Over the first few months, circadian rhythms begin to emerge, and infants gradually consolidate sleep into longer stretches, especially during the night, as melatonin production and light sensitivity take hold. During early childhood, from toddler to preschool years, sleep consolidates further, and total daily sleep time gradually decreases to about 10 to 14 hours, including daytime naps. The proportion of REM sleep declines, while non-REM deep sleep becomes more dominant, supporting physical growth, immune development, and memory consolidation. Bedtime routines become especially important during this stage, as the brain begins to associate environmental and behavioral cues, like dim lighting, quiet music, or a bedtime story, with the onset of sleep. Children may experience night terrors, sleepwalking, or bedwetting during these years, all of which are considered normal parasomnias associated with brain maturation and usually resolve over time. In school-age children, roughly ages 6 to 12, the need for sleep stabilizes around 9 to 12 hours per night, but sleep challenges can begin to emerge due to increased academic pressure, screen exposure, and busy extracurricular schedules. Deep non-REM sleep remains crucial for learning, emotional regulation, and physical repair, while REM sleep continues to support creativity and social development. At this age, sleep deprivation can begin to significantly impact school performance, behavior, and mood, often manifesting as inattention, hyperactivity, or emotional sensitivity. Encouraging a consistent sleep schedule, limiting caffeine and screen use in the evening, and protecting bedtime from creeping later are essential strategies during these years. With the onset of adolescence, the architecture of sleep shifts again. Teenagers still require about 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night, but many fall far short of this due to both biological and social factors. A natural delay in circadian rhythm, often called a phase delay, causes teens to feel sleepy later at night and prefer waking later in the morning. However, early school start times, social pressures, academic demands, and heavy device use often lead to chronic sleep deprivation. This mismatch between biological sleep timing and societal expectations contributes to mood disorders, risk-taking behavior, and impaired learning in adolescence. Advocacy for later school start times and education on sleep hygiene have been shown to improve teen sleep and well-being dramatically. In young adulthood, the circadian rhythm typically shifts earlier again, and sleep patterns become more flexible, but often less consistent due to work, social life, and stress. Adults between 18 and 25 still need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep, yet many push the boundaries of their limits, believing they can catch up on weekends or function with less. This is the age where insomnia often first develops, especially among college students or new professionals facing high demands and variable schedules. The effects of poor sleep in this phase can ripple into all areas: productivity, mental health, relationships, and long-term health risks, yet this stage also offers a unique opportunity to establish lasting habits of restorative, sustainable sleep. As people move into middle adulthood, sleep needs remain largely unchanged, but the quality of sleep often begins to decline. Work stress, parenting, aging parents, and health issues can all contribute to insomnia, nighttime awakenings, or reduced sleep duration. The proportion of deep non-REM sleep begins to decrease, and sleep fragmentation becomes more common. Hormonal changes, particularly during perimenopause and menopause, can significantly affect sleep in women, with hot flashes, night sweats, and mood shifts disrupting rest. Weight gain, chronic stress, and conditions like sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome also tend to emerge or worsen during this stage. Prioritizing sleep becomes increasingly important, not just for comfort but for long-term prevention of cognitive decline, cardiovascular disease, and emotional burnout. In older adulthood, typically after age 65, sleep undergoes further changes in architecture and rhythm. Total sleep time may remain stable or decrease slightly, but sleep tends to become lighter and more fragmented, with less time spent in deep non-REM and REM stages. Older adults often experience advanced sleep phase syndrome, or they become sleepy earlier in the evening and wake earlier in the morning, sometimes before sunrise. Daytime napping becomes more common, either to compensate for poor nighttime sleep or due to declining energy levels. Medical conditions, medications, chronic pain, and reduced exposure to natural light can all affect sleep quality in this stage of life. However, contrary to common belief, poor sleep is not an inevitable part of aging. Many older adults can achieve satisfying, restorative sleep by maintaining consistent routines, managing health issues, and optimizing their sleep environment. Throughout the lifespan, the purpose of sleep remains constant, even as its structure and timing evolve, repairing the body, regulating emotion, consolidating memory, and maintaining metabolic and cognitive health. Each stage of life brings new challenges and new opportunities for protecting and honoring sleep. Whether in the restless stirrings of infancy, the creative dreaming of adolescence, or the quiet hours of old age, sleep continues to serve as a pillar of health and a deep, essential rhythm beneath all the stages of living. Chapter 15: Technology, Screens, and the Modern Sleep Crisis. In the modern age, no force has reshaped the human sleep experience more rapidly and more profoundly than technology. The widespread adoption of smartphones, tablets, laptops, and televisions has brought the glow of artificial light into nearly every bedroom on the planet, transforming the nighttime environment from one of gradual darkness and quiet into one of endless stimulation, interaction, and disruption. While technology offers countless benefits and conveniences, its impact on sleep has become a public health concern. One that touches nearly every demographic and contributes to what experts now call a global sleep crisis. The most direct way technology affects sleep is through light exposure, particularly from blue wavelength light emitted by LED screens. This type of light mimics daylight and is especially powerful in suppressing melatonin, the hormone that signals the brain it's time to sleep. When we use devices late into the evening, scrolling through social media, streaming videos, replying to emails, we send our brains a confusing message that it's still daytime, delaying the natural onset of drowsiness and shifting the circadian rhythm later. This is especially problematic for children and teenagers, whose brains are more sensitive to light and who often use screens well into the night, sometimes in bed with the device just inches from their face. Beyond light, technology also delivers mental stimulation that can keep the brain in a state of alertness long after the device is turned off. Whether it's the emotional highs and lows of social media, the tension of binge-watching thrillers, or the pressure of late-night work emails, digital content engages the mind in ways that make winding down much harder. The brain craves closure before rest. It wants to resolve the narrative, reply to the message, check the notification. This psychological engagement elevates cortisol and other stress-related chemicals, interfering with the natural descent into sleep and reducing the quality of rest even when sleep eventually arrives. For many, bedtime procrastination has become a new normal, where people knowingly delay going to sleep, even when exhausted, in favor of more screen time. This phenomenon, sometimes called revenge bedtime procrastination, often stems from a desire to reclaim personal time in a busy or stressful life. Unfortunately, the time gained is often paid back in poorer health, lower energy, and diminished cognitive functioning the next day. What feels like a small indulgence accumulates night after night into a chronic deficit that impacts mood, productivity, and well-being on a deeper level than most realize. Technology also plays a significant role in sleep disruptions during the night. Notifications, vibrations, buzzing alerts, and glowing screens can interrupt sleep cycles and lead to fragmented rest, even if we don't remember waking up. The simple presence of a phone on the nightstand can create a subtle anticipatory tension, an openness to interruption, that prevents the brain from fully letting go into deeper stages of sleep. Many people now check their phones first thing in the morning and last thing at night, creating a 24-hour loop of digital engagement that rarely allows for full mental detachment or restoration. At the societal level, technology has blurred the boundaries between work and rest, turning homes into offices, bedrooms into media centers, and leisure into endless engagement. The rise of remote work, global time zones, and digital availability has created an always-on culture where stepping away feels increasingly difficult. The result is a collapse of protected sleep time, especially for people in high-pressure professions or caregiving roles. Even the mere expectation of being reachable at all hours can alter sleep behavior, pushing bedtimes later or encouraging middle-of-the-night device checking that disrupts the body's sleep architecture. Children and adolescents are especially vulnerable in this landscape. Excessive screen time has been linked to shorter sleep duration, later bedtimes, and more sleep problems in youth across multiple studies. Children who sleep with a TV, phone, or tablet in their bedroom often get less sleep overall and experience more disturbances throughout the night. The overstimulation from fast-paced digital media can condition the brain to expect constant novelty, making the slower rhythms of natural sleep feel boring or hard to tolerate. Developing healthy boundaries around screen use early in life is critical, not only for sleep but for cognitive and emotional development. Still, not all technology is inherently harmful to sleep. In fact, when used wisely, digital tools can support better rest. Sleep tracking apps, white noise generators, guided meditations, and blue light filters can all contribute to improved sleep hygiene when implemented with care. Smart devices can remind users when it's time to wind down, monitor patterns of rest and wakefulness, and help identify behaviors or habits that sabotage sleep. The key is not to eliminate technology entirely, but to use it consciously, ensuring that it serves rather than sabotages our need for deep, uninterrupted rest. Strategies to reduce the impact of screens on sleep include setting a digital curfew, a time after which no more devices are used, ideally 1 to 2 hours before bed. Keeping screens out of the bedroom entirely, using blue light filters or night shift modes in the evening, and creating screen-free wind-down routines that help the body transition into rest. Reading a physical book, stretching, meditating, or listening to calming music are far more sleep-conducive activities than endlessly scrolling through updates or watching backlit content in the dark. Even small changes, like dimming lights earlier or turning off autoplay, can have a surprisingly powerful effect on sleep quality over time. As our dependence on digital devices continues to grow, reclaiming our nights may become one of the most important acts of personal wellness and resistance in the 21st century. Sleep is not just about closing our eyes, it is about closing the loop of constant engagement, restoring the boundary between rest and stimulation, and allowing the mind to return to its natural rhythms. The future of healthy sleep may depend not only on what we know about biology, but on how bravely we reshape our relationship with technology and reclaim the sacred stillness of the night. Chapter 16: The Economic and Societal Cost of Poor Sleep. Though often treated as a personal issue or individual lifestyle choice, poor sleep has consequences that ripple far beyond the bedroom. It is a systemic problem with staggering economic, social, and public health implications. Sleep deprivation silently erodes performance, judgment, and well-being across nearly every sector of society, costing billions of dollars each year in lost productivity, healthcare expenditures, workplace accidents, and premature mortality. While we may intuitively understand that sleep is essential, few truly grasp how deeply a sleep-deprived population can impact the functioning of an entire civilization. At the most direct level, sleep deprivation leads to a significant loss of productivity. Studies across multiple nations have consistently shown that employees who sleep less than 6 hours per night are substantially more likely to show up late, work less efficiently, make more errors, and take more sick days. According to a comprehensive RAND Corporation study, the U.S. alone loses over $411 billion per year in economic productivity due to insufficient sleep. An estimate that includes both absenteeism and presenteeism, the phenomenon of showing up to work but functioning far below optimal capacity. Countries like Japan, Germany, and the UK experience similar multi-billion-dollar losses annually, all linked to something as seemingly simple as chronic tiredness. Beyond the desk or office, sleep deprivation dramatically increases the risk of accidents and injuries, especially in industries that require vigilance, coordination, or heavy machinery. In the transportation sector, airlines, trucking, shipping, rail, sleep-related fatigue has been implicated in some of the most catastrophic disasters in modern history. The Chernobyl nuclear meltdown, the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and the 3 Mile Island incident were all linked, in part, to human errors made under the fog of fatigue. Even outside of these high-risk fields, drowsy driving causes more than 100,000 car crashes each year in the United States alone, killing thousands and injuring tens of thousands more. Fatigue impairs reaction time, decision-making, and situational awareness as profoundly as alcohol, yet it remains vastly underrecognized as a cause of harm on the road. Healthcare systems also bear a heavy burden from sleep deprivation. Not only because of its direct impact on disease but also because sleep-deprived workers are more likely to make medical errors. Nurses, physicians, and residents often operate under chronic sleep restriction, especially during overnight shifts or long rotations, which increases the risk of misdiagnoses, procedural mistakes, and patient harm. The irony is striking. Those tasked with safeguarding health often do so at the expense of their own well-being, and the consequences ripple outward to the vulnerable people they serve. Efforts to reform medical training and staffing practices have begun in response, but cultural norms that valorize sleeplessness remain entrenched. Chronic sleep deprivation also drives up healthcare costs by contributing to the development of numerous conditions. Obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, anxiety, immune dysfunction, and more. When people consistently get inadequate sleep, their bodies operate in a state of low-grade inflammation and metabolic imbalance, requiring more medical interventions, medications, and hospital visits. Poor sleep weakens vaccine effectiveness, increases susceptibility to infection, and slows recovery from illness, placing additional strain on already overwhelmed healthcare systems. Addressing sleep as a public health priority could reduce the prevalence and severity of many of these conditions, thereby lowering costs and improving quality of life on a massive scale. Children and adolescents are not spared from this crisis. Insufficient sleep among students leads to reduced academic performance, impaired memory, mood instability, and behavioral issues. Schools with early start times are now facing pressure to delay classes in response to mounting evidence that teenagers' biological clocks naturally shift later during puberty. Where school start times have been adjusted, results are clear: students sleep longer, report less daytime sleepiness, and perform better academically. Yet millions of children around the world still begin their day when their brains are physiologically unprepared for learning, leading to avoidable struggles that accumulate year after year. Economically disadvantaged communities suffer disproportionately from sleep deprivation. People in lower-income neighborhoods are more likely to work multiple jobs, night shifts, or erratic hours, often referred to as shift work, which disrupts circadian rhythms and fragment rest. These communities are also more likely to experience environmental noise, unsafe neighborhoods, and housing instability, all of which further erode sleep quality. The result is a vicious cycle where poor sleep reinforces poverty and health inequity, reducing educational and professional outcomes, increasing disease burden, and perpetuating social disadvantage across generations. Sleep, in this context, is not just a health issue, it is a social justice issue. Even in the military and emergency response sectors, sleep deprivation is treated as a necessary cost of performance, but this mindset is shifting. Recent studies from defense organizations show that tactical effectiveness, resilience under pressure, and long-term mental health are all dramatically compromised by chronic sleep restriction. Whether in combat zones or disaster relief operations, teams that get adequate sleep make better decisions, experience fewer breakdowns, and maintain stronger cohesion than those who are constantly exhausted. Forward-thinking institutions are now integrating strategic napping, sleep education, and protected rest periods into their training protocols, not as luxury but as necessity. At a cultural level, the glorification of sleeplessness remains one of the final frontiers of wellness reform. We celebrate overwork, grind culture, and endless hustle while quietly suffering the consequences: burnout, breakdown, disconnection, and decline. Leaders in business, politics, and media often reinforce this message by boasting of their 4-hour sleep routines as a badge of toughness or discipline. But science is now pushing back, revealing that optimal performance, long-term leadership, and sustainable creativity all require deep, consistent rest. The most effective minds in history, from Einstein to Maya Angelou, often cherished their sleep and protected it fiercely. When taken together, the cumulative cost of poor sleep on society is both staggering and largely preventable. Policies that promote later school start times, limit work-hour extremes, reduce environmental noise, and educate the public on sleep hygiene can yield enormous returns in productivity, safety, and quality of life. In the same way that public health campaigns transformed attitudes toward smoking, seatbelts, and nutrition, the next great frontier may be a societal awakening to the value of sleep, not as a passive state but as a foundational pillar of a thriving, intelligent, and compassionate world. Chapter 17: The Future of Sleep Science and Innovation. As our understanding of sleep deepens and technologies advance, the future of sleep science promises not only new insights into the mysteries of the sleeping brain but also transformative tools for diagnosing, enhancing, and even optimizing sleep in ways once thought impossible. We stand at the threshold of a new era. One where neuroscience, bioengineering, digital health, and personalized medicine converge to revolutionize how we sleep, how we heal during sleep, and how we unlock the full cognitive and emotional potential of rest. In this unfolding future, sleep is not merely protected, it is elevated. One of the most exciting frontiers is the development of real-time sleep tracking and analysis tools that move beyond simple wearable devices and into the realm of deep biometric intelligence. While today's sleep trackers offer basic metrics like duration, heart rate variability, and time spent in REM or deep sleep, future devices aim to integrate EEG-based brainwave monitoring, oxygen saturation levels, skin conductance, and even emotional profiling to provide a far more nuanced understanding of sleep quality. These advanced tools will allow users not just to measure their sleep but to understand what environmental, dietary, emotional, or behavioral factors are most affecting it, and then adjust accordingly with precision. AI-driven platforms will likely become sleep coaches, intelligent systems capable of tailoring sleep advice based on individual physiology, lifestyle, and real-time data. These platforms will recommend sleep schedules, light exposure timing, meal and exercise planning, and even optimal nap windows based on predictive models. Over time, they could learn a person's unique circadian rhythm and suggest personalized routines that promote maximum restfulness and alertness. Unlike static sleep hygiene checklists, these tools will evolve with the user, adapting to changing work patterns, travel schedules, stress levels, and health status to keep sleep aligned with life. In clinical settings, sleep disorders may soon be diagnosed remotely and non-invasively using highly sensitive sensors embedded in everyday objects. Pillows, mattresses, or even headbands, rather than through the cumbersome, artificial environment of a sleep lab. These sensors could continuously gather data across multiple nights in a person's natural sleeping environment, detecting patterns indicative of conditions like sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, REM behavior disorder, or chronic insomnia. By integrating this information with cloud-based analytics, healthcare providers could diagnose issues earlier, track treatment progress more accurately, and intervene with greater precision, all without the need for overnight hospital stays. Neurostimulation and auditory entrainment technologies are also advancing rapidly, offering new ways to directly enhance the architecture of sleep. Devices that emit subtle tones or vibration synchronized with the brain's natural slow-wave oscillations can deepen non-REM sleep, improving memory consolidation and physical recovery. Early experiments with transcranial electrical stimulation and targeted sound cues suggest that it may be possible to boost the restorative power of deep sleep by gently reinforcing specific neural rhythms without waking the sleeper. These techniques, once experimental, are rapidly moving toward consumer-ready devices designed not only to improve sleep but to enhance learning, creativity, and mood through better sleep. Dream research is another burgeoning field, particularly with the rise of lucid dreaming training and dream recording technology. While full dream recording remains speculative, researchers are making progress in decoding elements of dream content based on patterns of neural activity. Future advancements may allow people to influence or revisit their dreams, use them as tools for therapy or creative problem-solving, and even share or visualize aspects of their inner dream world. Such technologies raise profound ethical questions about privacy and consciousness, but they also hold the potential to unlock vast untapped resources within the subconscious mind. In the pharmaceutical domain, new classes of sleep-enhancing compounds are being developed that move away from traditional sedatives and toward neurohormonal modulation. Instead of knocking out the brain with blunt chemical force, these new treatments aim to gently guide the natural sleep process, enhancing melatonin, adenosine, or GABA activity without altering sleep architecture or causing grogginess upon waking. Some experimental therapies even target orexin receptors, which regulate wakefulness, offering promising treatments for insomnia and narcolepsy. These compounds could offer better solutions for people with chronic sleep issues while preserving the integrity of natural cycles. Sleep science is also beginning to explore interindividual variability. The genetic and epigenetic factors that determine why some people are night owls, others morning larks, and some are naturally short or long sleepers. As genomic data becomes more integrated into health records, we may soon see personalized chronobiology emerge as a standard part of medicine. Individuals might receive customized lifestyle plans that match their genetic sleep profile, improving everything from athletic performance to mental clarity and emotional resilience. This would mark a shift from reactive medicine to proactive, sleep-centered health optimization. Sleep education and policy reform are also crucial elements of the future. More institutions, schools, corporations, hospitals, and governments are recognizing that sleep is not a luxury but a fundamental pillar of public health and productivity. Forward-thinking schools are delaying start times for adolescents, workplaces are experimenting with nap pods and flexible schedules, and public campaigns are beginning to treat sleep like nutrition or exercise, essential, measurable, and worth protecting. This cultural transformation, once seen as idealistic, is slowly becoming a practical necessity in the face of burnout, chronic disease, and declining well-being. As we look ahead, the convergence of neuroscience, biofeedback, machine learning, and behavioral psychology holds the promise of transforming how we rest and recover. But perhaps the most profound future innovation will not be a device or a drug, it will be a shift in mindset. A world that values sleep not as an afterthought but as a sacred and vital function will unlock deeper levels of creativity, health, and empathy. The sleep revolution will not come only from laboratories. It will come from bedrooms, schools, boardrooms, and minds that finally choose to rest. Chapter 18, Conclusion, Reclaiming the Night. In the quiet darkness where thoughts soften and breath deepens, sleep waits patiently, not as an obligation or an inconvenience, but as a profound biological ritual that connects us to the very essence of being human. For too long, we have treated sleep as expendable, cutting it short for work, entertainment, ambition, or distraction, unaware that in doing so we were cutting away the roots of our own resilience, creativity, and health. Yet the science is now undeniable: sleep is not a luxury, it is a cornerstone of life, as essential as food or air, and as powerful as any medicine we know. To reclaim sleep is not simply to get more of it. It is to restore our relationship with rest, to reweave the frayed edges of the night into something sacred and whole again. This means honoring the rhythms of the body, not overriding them with caffeine and blue light. It means creating spaces that invite stillness, where the nervous system can soften and the mind can gently let go. It means recognizing that sleep is not the absence of productivity, but the engine of it, fueling learning, decision-making, emotional regulation, and physical renewal in ways no waking hour ever could. We must also change the narrative. Sleep is not weakness, laziness, or indulgence, it is strength, intelligence, and wisdom. The most visionary thinkers, artists, athletes, and leaders have known this. They have slept deliberately, even fiercely, protecting it not as a passive retreat but as an active investment in clarity, performance, and longevity. In a culture that glorifies busyness and burnout, sleep becomes an act of defiance, a quiet rebellion against a world that often forgets to pause. On a societal level, reclaiming sleep means reshaping our environments, our technologies, and our institutions. It means designing cities and workplaces that support natural light exposure and quiet nights. It means educating children, not just on math and science, but on the biology of rest and the power of dreams. It means pushing for policies that reflect what the research already proves, that a well-rested population is a healthier, smarter, and more compassionate one. Sleep is not just personal. It is profoundly political, touching everything from public safety and education to mental health and economic productivity. In our own lives, the invitation is simple yet powerful: to listen. To listen to the fatigue that whispers in the evening, to the body's request for slowness, to the mind's longing to drift inward and down. We can dim the lights, turn off the noise, let the screens rest before we do, and make room once more for rituals that soothe instead of stimulate. Whether it's reading a book by soft lamplight, sipping herbal tea, journaling our thoughts, or simply breathing deeply under a blanket of silence. These are not small things. They are acts of return. Because every night, sleep offers us not just rest, but a kind of rebirth. It resets the brain, clears emotional residue, consolidates memory, repairs tissues, and calibrates hormones. It prepares us for the next sunrise, not just to function but to feel, to connect, to create. And it is always there, waiting patiently behind the noise, beneath the schedule, beneath the stress. We have only to make space for it. To let go just long enough to be carried. So let us reclaim the night. Let us honor the dark not as emptiness but as restoration. Let us sleep not out of exhaustion, but out of reverence. Because in doing so, we don't just improve our nights, we transform our days. We awaken more whole.